Welcome to the 2020 Atlanta Journal-Constitution Decatur Book Festival presented by Emory University. I'm Dwayne Nutter, a chef and restaurateur from Mobile, Alabama, and I'm thrilled to introduce tonight's special guest, award-winning photographer Alan Batt, better known as Battman. But first, let's recognize our sponsor. This year's Culinary Conversations are sponsored by Whole Foods Market, and we're so grateful for their ongoing support for our industry and our community. Let's get right into it. Batman has produced more than 30 books over his distinguished career. Tonight, he's here to discuss Toques in Black, his latest project, a celebration of black chefs. This book is an amazing accomplishment. Batman's traveled over 30 cities to highlight stories of America's most talented black chef. There's about 101 in all in this book. I know because I'm honored to be one of them. As Marcus Samuelson said in the book's introduction, we are lucky to be living in an era where diversity is celebrated. And books like this are a huge part of that. It's with a great appreciation for all of his hard work in putting this project together that I give you Batman, along with tonight's MC, Kim Severson of the New York Times. Enjoy.
Hello, welcome. I'm Kim Severson. I'm a food writer with the New York Times, and I want to welcome everybody here to the last event in the Decatur Book Festival Culinary Conversations. This is presented by Whole Foods, and we always appreciate our sponsors. So I almost every, for the last several years, have been helping out at the Decatur Book Festival, which is one of the largest independent book festivals in the country. I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia, and have been lucky enough to be on their culinary stage over Labor Day weekend when we have, the Great Decatur Book Festival, which is a big event for us here, but also brings in authors from around the world and all over the country. And so this year, like everything else, here we are having a virtual book festival. I just appreciate everybody who's tuned in and all the people who endure Zoom with children and all the ways we're doing this. So thank you everybody for showing up. We have a very, a fellow who I've heard of before and never had a chance to talk to, and super excited about it. He is Alan Batt. Everybody calls him Batman, which is terrific. And so we have Batman here. Although, Alan, do you prefer me to call you Alan or Batman through this whole conversation?
Anything is fine.
Okay, Mr. Bat, Mr.
Yeah. No, maybe not Mr. Bat.
So Alan has traveled around the country interviewing and photographing black chefs for his latest book, which is called Toques in Black, of which I have a very lovely marked up copy of here. And we're going to be going through it and talking about how you did that. And I think that it's got 101 chefs in it. And I don't think that I have seen another collection of this many chefs in a book of photography before. So the depth of it and the breadth of it is really impressive. So just a couple of housekeeping before we get into our talk. First of all, if you have a question, hit the ask a question button and they'll pop up here, and as we can work them into the conversation, we will. And don't be shy about that, because that's the best way we can kind of make this more of a live event, is the more questions that you have. Second, please consider donating to the Decatur Book Festival to continue programming. It is a big independent book festival. There's not a lot of them like it in the country, and this is it's a special thing. So I think there's a green donate button underneath me. And since none of us are spending our money going out eating at restaurants to support chefs, although I hope we're all doing takeout and doing our best to keep the restaurant industry going till we can all get back. If you want to spend a little bit of that money you would have spent at a restaurant by donating to the book festival, that would be great. So Alan, you're in New York right now?
Yes, I am.
Midtown, is that right?
Yeah, Midtown is good.
Give or take. That could be, if you're a real estate agent, you might call it Midtown, right?
Midtown, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, near Herald Square.
Okay, and you you ride around on your bike most of the time in New York, is that right?
Most of the time. I did have a bicycle accident one day about 7 years ago, so it kept me off the street for about 4 months.
Okay, all
But
right.
other than that, I'm good.
All right. Well, I want to get into how you got into doing this, and you have this like fascinating story. But first, just so people get a feel for what your book is, I think we've got a video that they're gonna, just a little taste of some of the images in your book. So if they can cue that up, are you guys, all the wonderful people who are supporting this talk, if you can cue it up for us, that would be great. Great. So before we get into how you gathered photographs of chefs and of 101 chefs and food, I want to talk a little bit about you so people know who you are. Now, my understanding is that when you were a boy, you were pretty much destined to work in your father's sweater factory in Canarsie. Is that right? We're going back to the roots, man.
I forgot all about that. Where is that?
So a girl, New York Times, we like to do our research. So
yeah, I was
but tell us a little bit. You're born in Canarsie and grew up. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I don't remember much. I remember seeing a picture where I lived in a Quonset hut, which looks like an airplane hangar. It's kind of, round on the top. And I remember I have one picture of me sitting in front of it with my dog named Girly. That's the only thing I remember. And then we moved to East Flatbush, and then we moved to Queens, and then I got married and left.
And that was it. So in the beginning, you were you did a lot of different jobs before you discovered photography was kind of your calling. You managed an auto body shop, is that right? In the beginning?
I worked for my father. He was in they called it the schmatta business. He was making sweaters. And I worked there for a while and I hated it. I just hated it. So then I left and worked for an auto body shop. A friend of mine, he said he was opening up a second one and that I would become the manager. Well, sanding cars for about 2 weeks was enough. And then I moved to California.
All right.
How far do you want me to go?
Well, now I'm very interested in this one piece where you were selling toys from Mattel. Is that right?
Yes.
And you were like what were you selling?
I think Barbie was 5 years old.
Okay.
Hot Wheels just came out.
Hot Wheels, love it.
Hot Wheels. And I went to there and I got introduced to them through a cousin or something. And they said to me, well, do you have any college? And I said, no. Do you have any sales experience? And I said, no. And they said, we don't want you. I said, well, gee, how am I going to get into this if nobody gives me a try? And I guess they liked it.
Yeah.
So they gave me a job. And in 3 months, I was their #1 salesman.
Amazing.
But it wasn't because, oh, yes.
No, go ahead.
Oh, it wasn't because I don't like selling. And after a year, they said that they wanted to make the sales pitch standard for everybody. About 40 years later, I realized that they wanted me to make it standard.
I see.
So because I would go and I didn't, I had a catalog and a blank piece of paper. And I said, this is what I think you need. They wanted me to come with a spreadsheet and all that. And I said, why ruin it? Why,
Yeah.
But so I quit.
You sort of take that same approach with your photography in a way. You have a real gut feel for this. It seems to me, and I think, as I understand, you began publishing some of your photos in New York City as postcards. So this is the 1980s, and
I started in '79 with my own greeting card business.
Okay.
But it was cartoons, and I told them what I wanted. And also, when you put all the cards in a rack, it was a 4-foot section in the card shop. It made up a big rainbow. It was very revolutionary, and Hallmark sent the photographers down to take pictures of it.
Okay. So when did you pick up a camera?
Well, because the card business was tough, and I said, maybe I had a camera like everybody else. I said, maybe I'll take some pictures in New York. So I did, and they were horrible. The composition was perfect. My eye is what saves me on anything that I do. The lighting was horrendous. I can't even think of why didn't anybody buy these cards?
But they did.
Yeah, they did. And then I became a well-known New York photographer, and I had a line of cards, and it was for 25 years.
Wow. And you also were the lead photographer for the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Is that also?
Yep, for 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I had a permanent exhibition at the Empire State Building for 17
What?
years.
And everybody who's out there waiting, we'll get to the food in a minute. I'm just kind of fascinated with New York history here. So when you photograph the Macy's parade,
Right.
is there a trick to it? I mean, they're so big. I don't know how you get any perspective. What was your approach?
Well, they wanted me in one spot. I was at when the parade would come up Broadway or down Broadway, and then make their right turn in front of Macy's, and I was there to take pictures. I have some wonderful stuff.
Do you have a favorite float or something that your favorite thing that you photographed?
Yeah, it was the Rockettes, the police on their motorcycles, the balloon. I can't remember what the balloon was, but everybody was standing in just the right spot.
Yeah.
And my philosophy is I'd rather be lucky than good.
Yeah, there you go.
Because if anybody was standing next to me, they would have gotten that picture. Meanwhile, they think that I'm some amazing photographer.
Right. Yeah. So really, at least the photographers, the photojournalists I work with, it's a lot about like being patient and placement. So they just figure out where to stand and then they wait. Right. And then the photo comes. It's just photographers are some of the most patient people that I know.
Depending on what you're shooting, food, no, unless you have a food, a stylist, but then they're there, for an hour. Right. But the most patient that I have ever been was when the first Batman movie came out. Mm-hmm. And by the way, folks, I don't have any Batman stuff at home. That would be a little too weird.
A little too on the nose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're in Times Square under the Coca-Cola sign. They had a Batman. Oh, it was like a TV, and the Batman thing would come up. And I went there 3 days in a row, waiting for the right moment to get that, and I did. But I sat on a ladder for a couple hours every day. So
how did you come to start photographing food and chefs? And this is I mean, how long does this go back for you? You have, I think, 27 books 27 books that I photographed and published. How did I get into it? The internet came along and put all my greeting card stores out of business. And I was going, oh no, what do I do now? And I'm not a foodie. I never was. I'm still not. And I think it was when for some reason I ate at the Four Seasons restaurant, and I went, wow, I can't believe what they do with food. And that's what started it. So that was it. But not because of the love of food, but that looks interesting. And you came in like right when the wave was cresting. I think Food Network hadn't really, or was just starting. The notion of the chef as celebrity that then has gone through its ideations to where we are now with that. But that was just beginning in this country, where a named chef at a restaurant was beginning to be a thing. In the old days, you would never know really who the chef was unless you were a real insider. Right. It was maybe the restaurateur like Ciro or, some of the big, you wouldn't know who the chef was, but you started right when that was happening, right? So. Yeah. And actually with the Empire State Building, I had an exhibition. It was all New York pictures, but I took one section and I decided to put food up. And it was at the time when, the chefs they were not TV celebrities. So I got Danielle Boulud, Erica Pear, Jean-Georges, I don't know, all the big names. It was just something to do. And I said, I want your best dish, your best looking dish. And I hung it up at the Empire State Building, and it was really cool. Do you think a young photographer today could have gotten access to all those chefs? It's a different game now. It's different now. There's some of them are just too busy for anybody. Or you have to go through their agent, or it has to be part of their TV person. It's just such a different game now. Yeah, well, the TV you can't do anymore, because I have the cell phones of a lot of TV chefs, and they won't be bothered anymore. Yeah, it's a different game. Well, let's talk first a little bit about this book, and then we can talk a little bit more about the Great Gathering of Chefs and some of the other events that you pieces that you've kind of put together. So when did you and how did you get the idea to do Toques in Black? It started the 2 years before Toques in Black. I did a book for Maître Cuisinier de France, which are the master chefs of France, and it's a group out of Paris.
And I knew the head chef here, the one that was in charge of the North American contingency.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the right word? Close.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Group. Could use that word.
Good,
Yeah.
that's easier. And then we've been talking for 2 years. I said, I'd like to do a book with you guys. And finally it came through, and I did. There was 77 chefs around the country. 4 of them were up in Canada. 2 of them were in the Caribbean. I had to go to St. Lucia, which was terrible, and the Caymans. And so I traveled around and did 77 chefs in 46 cities in 50 days.
Unbelievable.
But I did break it up. I went to the West Coast, and then I come home for 2 days because I had only carry-on luggage, so I had to wash my clothes.
I see. How did you pay for all this at the time? I mean, was it the
They had the
chefs
money
flying you out, or were you just
The
kind of shoestringing it?
the group paid for the travel.
Great.
But I'm a cheap traveler, and I knew that there was a budget, so I drove a lot, and and we made it work, and it was great. It was up till that time. It was the best thing that I've ever done.
Wow.
The most interesting. So after that, I was thinking, gee, what should I do next? And it's like becoming a food photographer. I don't remember the thing that started it, but I knew 3 Black chefs in New York. And I thought maybe I should just do that, with Black chefs, but I didn't think there were very many. And I thought it'd be interesting. So the first 10 chefs, I asked them to do 2 dishes because I didn't think I had enough to fill up a book.
Mm-hmm. Who were some of the first couple of chefs that you approached?
The first couple of chefs was, let's see, Brian Fowler, who is at the Black Barn. Patrick Clark might be, Preston Clark. Patrick Clark was his father. Yeah. Preston Clark might have been one of the ones. And then there was a guy at Catch. His name is Hillary. And those are the first 3. And then I would just keep asking everybody. And then it would, one would be in California and Las Vegas, and it was great. And that was 36 cities, and I think about 55 days. I never kept a count, but a lot of driving.
It's amazing. And were they open to you coming in, this kind of white Jewish guy? Well, no, you're not Jewish, but this white guy from New York. Okay, there you go. I know. Well, I don't want to assume the white Jewish guy from New York, who came in and like, hey, I want to do this book, and just taking some photographs. What was and this was a couple years ago, right? So a lot of
this is before all the
and before the social justice movement and Black Lives Matter was really happening.
This is just something to do.
Yeah, and they were like, sure, come take my food.
They were more than sure. They were so excited they were jumping up and down.
Oh, that's
Nobody's
great.
ever done it before. Nobody's ever done as many chefs.
No, and you have some beautiful, like Tavel Bristol Joseph, who's in Austin at this great restaurant, Bremer, and I like this photograph, which I'm going to hold up because we're low tech here. You all expected a deep slideshow, but I'm going to show everyone.
That was on the slideshow, by the way.
Okay, so there you go.
My favorite. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, beautiful. And then you, the book has the pictures of the chef and often a picture of them as a young person. And I thought that was the neatest thing in these essays, is that, they just kind of say in their own words where they came from. And, Tavel moved here from Guyana, I think, when he was 17. But some of the stories are people who just had, no kind of culinary background. And then you get to see that one moment that they turned and became chefs. How did you gather their narratives in this book?
Well, this book would have been done a year earlier because originally it was just going to be a cookbook. And then I said, you know what? I don't need another cookbook. I need something special. So then I decided, it took me 4 or 5 months to get the stories from. That was the hardest thing to get, was the stories.
Yeah, right, of course.
And
then you got a recipe, because there's recipes. So
got a recipe, and then I took the picture. And then we put it together, and it was amazing. And the stories are unbelievable. The one common denominator with probably 75% of them is they got their inspiration from their grandmother.
So the grandmother was you think that was the unifying piece for them?
That was,
And how many of that, because a lot of these folks have a lot of professional culinary training and have cooked in some of the really great hotel restaurant kitchens, and I'm just curious, like, did you get a sense of, a lot of them went to like the French Culinary Institute, and how important did you feel like as a whole that professional culinary training was to them.
If you talk to any successful chef, they'll tell you that you don't need culinary school to begin
Right.
with. And you
Right.
might never need. There was a guy named Wayne Nish, he's a white guy, and he was an architect, and he became one of the top 10 chefs in the world, and he never went to school.
Mm-hmm.
And his plating was amazing. He was an architect, and his food
Right.
was terrific. Then there's others. You want a couple of stories?
Sure.
This guy named
That's
Jeff.
what we're here for, everyone, right? Just tell
okay,
us some
yes.
stories.
Well, the two most impressive ones was Jeff Henderson, who was in Las Vegas. And Jeff went to jail for drug dealing. And while he was in jail, they gave him a job in the kitchen, washing dishes. And he's worked his way up until he was the chef. And then when he got out, he worked for Thomas Keller. I can't remember the names because it's been a while since I read the stories, but he worked in some of the best restaurants. He did go to school, and then he was the executive chef at the Bellagio and one other restaurant or hotel in Las Vegas.
Wow.
Now he's a motivational speaker.
Amazing.
Amazing. Then there's another guy in Colorado Springs named Brother Luck.
Oh yeah, I suppose Brother Luck.
Yes, that's his real name.
Trying to see if I have his picture here. Yeah.
It's in alphabetical order by name, first name.
I'm looking to the B's. Go ahead.
And his father passed away when he was 10, I think it was, and his mother was incarcerated, and I won't tell for what.
I'm gonna pull this up while you talk.
All right. And so he and his brother pretty much had to fend for themselves. They went around to different homes and stuff, but he got involved with gangs and drugs and lots of terrible stuff. And then he was discovered by CCAP, which is an organization that helps lower income kids and stuff get scholarships to go to culinary school. And they saved him. Now he's got 2 restaurants in Colorado Springs. He's extremely successful. You'll see him on TV. He does also motivational speaking. And here he is, and it's amazing.
And I'll show you, you photographed a blue cornbread dish of his, right? Can you describe the dish for us a little bit?
Kind of
blue cornbread, yeah.
Blue cornbread, and there's blueberries on top. And I've been photographing so many, if you want to know the truth, I can't remember.
Right. I was going to see, if there was a recipe, and I think this is from the Ute tribe. So he's obviously taking the kind of some of the cultural components in Colorado and working it. His story just is amazing. And how was he to work with?
Oh, it was terrific. Everybody was really wonderful.
So how does it, when you go in and, I've worked with lots of food photographers, and food photography can be an all-day grueling process. It can be, depending on how they're testing. And so, you have the cook who's making the recipe, then you have stylists who come in, and there's all these things. Sometimes it's a more, dynamic thing. You have this this sort of natural eye. You say a lot of it is the first 2 or 3 frames are the best of the images. You don't
usually the biggest complaint when I do jobs, they say, "Are you going to take any more pictures?" And I said, "Oh, no, that's the best side of the dish."
Yeah.
And when they make me take pictures, and I'll take it from all different sides, and it's just, and they end up using the first one.
Right.
It's not anything that I practiced. I can just look at it and it looks right.
So do you play around with the composition of the dishes at all, or do they just come?
No, it's very little. I mean, if it really looks terrible, I'll help it out.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, it looks fine. I mean, some of the stuff is absolutely beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them, it's not, but it looks like you want to eat it, and which is more important. If you look at any of my pictures, whether they're beautiful or not, it looks like, gee, I want to eat that.
Right. Do you want to take a bite of that?
Right.
Yeah.
And we don't do, some of the chefs will, but the tweezers and, and getting the lettuce curved just perfectly across the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what I do.
Right. So when you walk in and you look at a plate, you just, do you in your mind's eye, are you just like, that's it? Or is it kind of a thing that comes to you kind of effortlessly in terms of knowing
it's no thought. It's so, it's hard to explain. I just go, okay, that's it. And that's it. without
you know,
thinking, well, should I take it this way? Should I take it that way? You
yeah,
know, I used to have all the big equipment and everything, and then when I had this bicycle accident, I couldn't carry it after that.
okay,
So now I have three small lights, the size of a cell phone, and that was 8 years ago. And there's a lot of people using that stuff now. I don't know whether I could credit myself for it. I know in New
yeah,
York a lot of people have seen it.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's
tell us a little more about your equipment. What's in your bag? Like, what do you take in your bag? What and what are you what are for the photographers who are watching, you can geek out for a minute and tell us a little bit about what's your equipment, a little more specifically, and what are
okay.
you using when you shoot?
Okay. Well, for the geeks, I probably wouldn't have more to talk to them for about maybe more than 10 minutes. Because I don't know anything about photography. I never wanted to be. And, you can study the color temperature and, all this
Right.
stuff. I only know one thing, that if the aperture is open wide, then the stuff in the background is going to come out blurry. And if you close it down all the way, everything is sharp, which is the way I always shoot.
Okay.
My favorite lens is 100 millimeter.
Okay.
If I'm traveling, I'll take a zoom, because with 100 millimeter, you can take one dish. And then sometimes they go and say, oh, could you take the whole table? And then I'm going, oh no.
Yeah.
And so I'd have to stand on the other side of the restaurant to take the picture. But the perspective for me, the 100 millimeter.
Wow.
And then keep the ASA kind of low and use a tripod all the time.
Always a tripod.
Always. I took, how long ago? Wait, how long is 79? 1980. Okay. 35 years ago, I took one day class for a Nikon, and it was in a big auditorium.
Mm-hmm.
And I only learned two things. One, use a tripod all the time. No matter how steady you are, and I am very steady, the picture will come out better with a tripod. It might be a pain in the neck, but do it.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, if you want to shoot fireworks, F8 at a quarter of a second.
That's all you need to know.
That's all you need to know.
Well, clearly something is, you've got such just an innate ability. Clearly something's working, because these are just gorgeous photographs.
For me, it's just lucky. I don't feel like I tried very hard.
Yeah.
The only thing that I try hard is I go out and I do what I have to do. If I do 77 chefs in 46 cities, that's what I'll do, and I'll do
Right.
it.
Do you edit a lot? I mean, do you have huge rolls of, or huge files that you work with, or are you pretty clean in your editing, your photo editing?
I don't do very much editing.
Right.
And I don't pump up the colors so that it looks like,
Right.
painted, the colors. It's all as natural as I can get.
I see. Do you shoot ahead of time, or do you play with an iPhone and shoot much, or is that not your? Yeah.
I love this phone. It's a Samsung Note 10.
Okay.
Samsung Note 4 I had for 7 years. It's the best camera on any phone.
Really?
But the problem was it was getting old. It was 7 years, so it was hard to use the phone.
Mm.
And then they brought this 10 out. It's the same hardware. It's a little better even because in low light. But I back up all of my jobs on my phone.
Nice.
And I did do a job the other day, and it was for a chef that I know really well, and I did him a favor, and it was probably 40 shots. I did it all with my phone. I couldn't take them better with my camera.
Really?
Yeah.
God, we live in the future, Batman. We live in the future. It's amazing.
That's why they don't need us so much anymore.
Yeah.
It's all in the lighting,
Mm-hmm.
and so you see a lot of stuff on Instagram. I'll stop taking it in the kitchen. It's gonna come out green. Period.
Yeah. So you can look at do you scroll through Instagram a lot and see what people are doing, and you can tell immediately how they screwed it up, or somebody who's doing it right?
I'm getting tired of looking at it because there's so much stuff on Instagram.
Yeah.
And it's
like a fire hose.
Yeah, and it's food, and how much different can it be, and I think the problem with what's happened with the chefs is everybody's trying to outdo everybody else.
Yeah.
Well, you get a restaurant like Black Barn who does home cooking, kind of American food, and it's not gorgeous. It's absolutely delicious.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like, what do I want to take another bite of? What do I want to eat? And the visual component of dishes, it makes it. And I felt that way very strongly about deconstructed desserts, which just, they were these gorgeous things, and you'd have an apple pie and all the components would be like this. And so to get one good bite, you had to do all this work as a diner. You had to get a little of this, and a little of this, and a little of this, and then you get your bite. And it's just, I found that to be, just really disrespectful of the person eating your food. Like, you're making me work too hard.
Yeah.
So when you get just a beautiful, spoonful of
Sure.
something or forkful, it's really, these days it
Yeah.
stands out a lot. Although now in restaurant, I will take anything a restaurant person would cook as soon as we
Right.
can get back in it. You sort of
Mhm.
forget. So do you eat out a lot yourself, or are you
No,
a
my wife,
diner guy, or what do
my
you like to
wife,
eat in New York?
oh, no, my wife likes to eat out. My wife is a wonderful cook.
Ah, lucky
Just
you.
absolutely wonderful. And every day it's wonderful.
Yeah.
But I have to be nice and take her out.
Yes,
So
you
we do.
do.
But I can't go to these high-end restaurants. I just don't. I can't afford that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And I did an interview with Danielle 2 years ago actually, and I feel like it was last month. And he gave me 30 to 45 minutes. And he said, and I have another meeting. And actually, he sat with me for 2.5 hours.
Wow.
But
Wow.
the story was, and he just said, we got to do this again. But he said, you have to come for dinner with my wife. So I went to dinner. It was $700. The tip is more than I would normally pay for a meal. And was it good? It was excellent. But for me, I don't know, it just seems like maybe if I was rich, I would think, okay, sure, I could eat that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right now I feel a little guilty.
Yeah, no,
But
absolutely. But this is the thing, and I feel the same way because, journalists, the newspaper people, we never make a ton of money, but I've been able to, and certainly the Times has me pay for all my meals. I don't get free meals at restaurants, but it has allowed me to eat way above my pay grade.
Mhm.
And I always joke, in this business, we live like paupers, but we eat, eat like
Right.
kings. So yeah, it's a nice thing, and it's a beautiful thing, because I think that those high-end dining experiences, if you look at them like art, are pretty awesome. And I've had some really transcendent experiences, but that people who collect restaurants like baseball cards, or did you go to this latest? And I found that in the pandemic, one thing I appreciate is I felt like I was just oversaturated, before the pandemic. I could not consume all the content that was being put out on television and on cable and all the, I couldn't eat at all the new restaurants. I couldn't listen to all the new music, and being forced to really think about what I want when things come back, like what kind of restaurant I want to go to. And it's not a 4-hour tasting menu that I'm longing for. It's a really beautiful neighborhood restaurant that's where the food is fresh and good.
Yep.
You really kind of clarifies what you want to eat. I don't know. What
Well,
are you looking forward to when
it's got to taste good. That's all. A quarter pounder with cheese, fries, and Coke is my go-to. I don't do it very
Nice.
often, but it just tastes good. And
Yeah.
it's always tasted good.
Yeah.
If I ate it every day, I'd probably hate it. But every 2 or 3
Yeah.
months, I'd go there and have one. In fact,
Yeah.
maybe I'm going to go do that right now.
There you
after
go.
we get finished, because I haven't
You have
done
to
it
make sure those McDonald's fries are hot though. And
Yes.
I have taken to, like, if on the rare occasions when I want a McDonald's French fry, because that's such a specific taste, if you order them without salt, then they have to cook them fresh. And they're hotter, and then you can put your own salt on them. But like, you have to kind of make a little special order, because McDonald's French fries are good for like about 2 minutes when they're super hot, and that's the best. I love that. So,
Okay,
but just
I got-
now we're on a side trip about
I'll
McDonald's
keep
fries.
that in mind. I had two
Yeah.
books that I do. And The Great Gathering of Chefs. And there was
Yeah.
one, and I do two books, a savory and a sweet. I did originally, my first book was the Great Bagel and Lox book. And it
Mhm.
was 87 chefs doing their version of a bagel and lox. And it didn't have to be a
Nice.
sandwich. It just had smoked salmon and
Nice.
bread.
Yeah.
And it was probably the most creative book, and everybody still talks about that book. But I did two. I do a savory and a sweet. And it was Small Things Savory and Small Things Sweet. And these were all little bites, but every one of them was gorgeous.
Great.
This is the kind of book that I would hang every one of those pictures on the wall. And they wouldn't want to eat it because they wouldn't want to mess it up.
And that was what, 20 years ago? When was that book?
No, that one was, I'm going to say, was it sandwiches? Maybe 2010.
Nice. Yeah.
And with the Great Gathering, it was always 200 chefs. It was usually about 70, 80.
So walk us back.
Okay.
The Great Gathering of Chefs. Tell us about that. And you've done 9 or 10 of them. Is that
I was
correct?
supposed to do the 10th one, and then COVID.
Right before COVID, you were set up. But tell us what the Great Gathering of Chefs are, how it started, and a little bit about what it is.
Well, at the time, I happened to be making a lot of money. So I said, and when I did this Empire State Building thing with the food, and then I did the bagels and lox, and we had an event up there called Lox at the Top, and they had a picture of a salmon stuck on the top of the Empire State Building antenna. And so everybody said, you should do a book. So I said, oh, okay, I'll do a book. And so I printed a book. I rented Vanderbilt Hall at Grand Central Station, and we had about 80 chefs there. And I have a photo exhibition of all the work that's in the books. They signed 100 books. We fed them pastrami and beer and champagne that particular time. And people came in, and all the money was given to a place called the Children's Storefront in Harlem. Okay. Mm-hmm. And for the next 2 or 3 years, I would have events. And then I started doing 2 books because I wanted to get the pastry people in. I did that for a while, and then it was costing too much. And I would get sponsors, but it was kind of close. But it was always money to go to different children's charities. Action Against Hunger was one. Mm-hmm. Recently, I give it to Food and Finance High School, which is excuse me, a public high school that majors in culinary. Mm-hmm. And the majority of the kids that go there are low income, and I give money to help them. They also give me their kitchens for free, and we have classes, not now, for unemployed, mostly people of color. We teach them, it's free, and we get them jobs in some of the best restaurants in New York.
Yeah, I love Food and Finance. I did a story on them when they first opened, and they've expanded to, they've at the end they were doing hydroponic vegetables and tilapia in the basement, and yep. They have a really great, they put out a magazine. I know they're working with the folks at Cherry Bomb magazine now to put out stuff, and Carrie Diamond, and yeah, that's an amazing program. I love Food and Finance High.
It's really amazing. They're still having some of the cooking classes in person. The rest have been virtual.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, but they're really, really wonderful.
So the Great Gathering of Chefs, you were about to do your 10th that was going to celebrate the book, right? So you had everybody lined up, and it was going to be, I think, May 24th or something.
No, March 17th.
I'm sorry, March 17th. I don't know where I got May 24th, March 17th. And you had to shut it down for COVID.
We had to shut it down 4 days before. We had 62 of the chefs coming in from out of New York. And we always do it at the Prince George Ballroom, which is just a wonderful, classic old hotel, ballroom. Mm-hmm. And there were 62 chefs coming in. I invited, and then there was from New York too, but I invited 50 other chefs of other colors to be there to egg everybody on, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. and to help, make it wonderful. And then the Thursday before, I said, this doesn't feel like it's right. And then Monday they canceled everything in New York.
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
So, and everybody's still waiting, and we'll do it. Hopefully we'll be able to do it. I don't know.
Okay. I do want to remind anybody who's watching, if you have questions, please go ahead and put them in the ask a question feature that you see, because we would love to be able to pass your questions on and get them answered from Alan while we're here. So please feel free to throw in your questions. Let's see. Somebody there said there are still a few questions. There are a few questions. Many have been answered. So I'm glad we answered whoever asked, but ask some more. I love that they have these folks managing all this for us, because it makes it so much easier. So was Food and Finance going to be the beneficiary of this year's Great Gathering? Yep. And so are you doing a few other things now, or how are you raising money? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, there's this John Dougherty from the Black Barn. He's got a thing that he's working on. He makes these dinners, pre-packed dinners, but they're vacuum. It looks like a dried fruit package. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not mistaken, and if I'm not mistaken, they last for a year.
Fantastic. MREs from chefs.
Yeah. And I really like it. And what I like about it, it goes to kids. Mm-hmm. And pretty much everything I do goes to, some kind of children. And they're mostly, low income kids. So I have to meet with them next week, and we're going to start doing the sale of the book. We'll give 25% to the charity. And then I have these t-shirts, and we'll give money also.
Great. What do the t-shirts say?
You want me to show you?
Okay. Show us the t-shirt.
It just so happens.
Okay.
One of them is this first one. This is
Racism needs a climate. Nice, nice.
And the
Hitting
other
two
one,
big notes.
yeah. And then this one, I really like this one because we were doing the black chefs and I won't, hard to explain, but chefs come in a lot of different colors, not just black. And I thought we should level the playing field and everybody should be a color. But right now it might be a little difficult, certain colors. But anyway, so we have these t-shirts.
Chefs come in many colors. That's kind of great. Kind of unifying.
So
nice. So people can buy that in the book. You have a great website, ineedthisbook.com. So ineedthisbook.com.
and it goes to the Chef's Connection, which is the main, but it goes there, yeah.
So people could maybe find t-shirts in your book to buy there?
Sure.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to be something unimportant.
Somebody asked a really interesting question. Restaurant owners and chefs have become very innovative during COVID. You know, some of them have become provisioners, selling sauces and pre-made meals, doing interesting things. Are there any chefs that you photograph that you think are gonna succeed just on pure innovation and willpower? Of the ones that are in the book, are there a couple who you thought really were innovative chefs that you think are going to come out of COVID okay?
Actually, there were quite a few. And I'm really happy to say that there were quite a few. A lot of them are cooking at home right now. I know in New York, there's 2 of them. They cook in their apartment. And between Instagram and their friends, they do between 40 and 60 dinners a night.
Wow. Wow. Who are they? Do you remember the names off the top of your head?
Brandon Walker. He's up in Poughkeepsie. And Brandon Walker. Wait. Walter.
In the book? Let me look him up.
Yeah, wait. Is it? Oh, I'm going to look it up too.
All right. Walter Smith.
Walter Smith. Yep.
Right.
And he's in the Bronx.
Yeah. Originally from Ghana in West Africa.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of them that are doing cooking. JJ Johnson. He's doing a lot of cooking for, the hospitals and all that stuff. And what's the kitchen? World Kitchen?
Oh yeah, World Central Kitchen. Jose Andres.
Yes,
organization.
they have acquired a lot of restaurants that are doing that kind of work. They're now doing, that they're doing the outdoor dining, which is okay, but it's starting to get chilly now. And there's some of the restaurants that were able to take up a really big portion of the street.
Right.
They're giving them for free. They're blocking the traffic off.
Yeah. And I understand propane heaters, those outdoor heaters are hard to find right now.
Yeah.
In
They
New
don't
York.
use them anymore.
Yeah.
But the problem is also, if the wind is blowing at all, it's not going to work.
Right. But I think today was the first day that New York got to come back 25% capacity. I know Per Se, for example, which is one of the higher end restaurants in New York, opened. And I think also in the Bay Area, they have come back 25%. And, it's difficult for restaurateurs to even make money at 25%.
They're not making any money. And what they'll do is they'll cut down on how many people, but at least they're getting some of their workers back.
Yeah. So at least it's something. So people.
Yeah, it's something, but it can just go for so long. And in fact, at the beginning, they were saying that independent restaurants can go for 18 days with no business and then they're done.
Oh, it's brutal.
Yeah,
do you feel safe from a COVID perspective eating at a restaurant, or do you think it's kind of morally okay to eat at a restaurant? It's a bit of a quandary, right? You don't want to put the workers at risk, but you also want to support the restaurant.
I also think about I'm old. I have to be careful.
Right.
So, that's something to think about. I do go around. I go to chefs. I'm doing some shoots for them and stuff. But it's a little bit, I don't know. I guess nobody knows. I've been lucky. I did fly 2 weeks ago. I had my N95 mask.
Yeah. How did that feel to fly?
On the first flight, American filled up every seat, and I was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But then the second flight to where I was going, there were only 20 people.
Okay, nice.
And so I'm not so comfortable yet. And maybe if I was younger, I would be a little stupid. But there's certain things that I have to do. I just got there's one chef that lives and has 2 restaurants in St. Croix. And I was talking to him, and they have an organization called West Indian Chef Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
It's 15 islands. And I said, we should do a book. And he said, we want to do a book, which I think would be traveling to 15 islands for a month would be
That sounds
okay.
great to me. I
And then
can
I could
come
take them
carry your
in,
equipment.
yeah. And then I could take them in their, in their surroundings, or if they're,
Mhm.
growing the stuff outside. I think it'd be wonderful.
Yeah. Wow. So that's probably your next project?
No, the next project I just finished today actually is with a French chef in France. He's a pastry chef, and his stuff is he's really outstanding. One of the best chefs I've ever seen. He is so creative, and every dish is different. So that's one. Yes.
Are you taking photographs during COVID? So do you go in with a mask and distance,
I
or?
always wear a mask. I'm not
Yeah.
taking that many pictures.
Okay.
I'm going in. I had this one job that I took with my phone, and then I want to do some work. I'm trying. I want to see if I can help out the restaurants because they're open now, and I'm going to work really cheap. So
Mm-hmm.
this way I'll have something to do and they can get some good pictures,
Right.
that they wouldn't get on their phone. Some of them are really good. They have some good marketing people.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do that. I'll help them out, and then I'll keep busy.
This book, really, this collection of 101 Black chefs, it really is remarkable, and I think has done a lot to bring those folks together in a community of sorts, right? They met each other, and for a while they were doing online classes and little projects together.
Right. And
Is that right?
And we've had Zoom with 25 of them. They say, wow, it's nice to meet you. I didn't know you were all here.
Mm-hmm.
Where are all the chefs is what where are all the chefs that look like me was the first thing they would say when I first started.
Right.
And they're all over the place.
So you feel like there's some connections they made together, right?
Yeah, it needs a little bit of prodding. Yeah, prodding.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to end up being good. It's going to be good for them. It's going to be good for everybody.
So part of it is they've formed a kind of some of them have formed some loose connections, and online are kind of creating a community of Black chefs who didn't know each other before, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, I'm trying to get more of them. I really think it's important.
Yeah. Somebody does ask, what do you think would be helpful to amplify Black culinary talent? Certainly everybody's rethinking the ways in which the lens through which mainstream media saw Black chefs, and I think diners are thinking differently about it. What are some other ways that we can amplify the work of Black chefs?
We were doing this thing called kitchen sessions. Two of the Black chefs in the book, and I want to move it up a notch and do with white chefs and Asian chefs.
What was kitchen sessions? Tell me about that.
Guy Scott Barton, who's one of the chefs in the book, said, let's do where we have a Zoom, thing with two chefs. One shows the other guy how to make his dish.
Mm-hmm.
So they would work together. We did about 10 of them.
Mm-hmm.
But then I wanted to move it up a notch and use other chefs. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to have the Black chef come up with a dish, and then have a chef of another color do something to that dish that would make it kind of his also. Mm-hmm. And so also the book is not Southern cooking. There's some, and I bill it as not much soul food, but a lot of soul. Yeah,
I think that the lens, that soul food lens, has been I think something of a two-sided coin for Black chefs. There are chefs who haven't come up out of the Southern cooking tradition, or maybe see soul, where soul food moved into something in which, in the Great Migration, Black cooks in the North could find a kind of a common language, right, through a certain kind of food. But this idea that, because the dishes that you have in your book, there are people from the Caribbean, there are people who bringing in West African flavors, and some people who are actually interpreting more European tastes and who are trained to cook in very traditional European kitchens. So this notion that any Black cookbook has to be a soul food cookbook, I think is a very kind of dusty idea these days, which is one thing that I like about your book, is that you're right, it's not a soul food cookbook. Not to say that there's not some great incredible food to eat
Absolutely.
soul food, but it is not the only kind of food that Black chefs cook,
No,
obviously.
and which is a stereotype that people think, oh, you fried chicken,
Yeah, no, of
and,
course.
and the subtitle on the book is chicken and waffles to foie gras brulee.
Right, exactly.
So,
Do you have any Atlanta? I can't remember. You don't have any Atlanta or
yes,
Georgia chefs?
you know what? I should have had my list.
Your
Let me
Atlanta
give you a
chefs? I was trying to remember.
let me give you for instance, a real quick of one of my trips. I flew down to Birmingham
Mm-hmm.
and I shopped there, and then I rented a car and I rode 1,300 miles in the next 4 days. And I did
Wow.
Atlanta, Charlotte, Charleston, Jacksonville,
Yeah.
and Savannah, and then Jacksonville. Then I flew over to New Orleans and I met Leah Chase, which I'm really happy about, two
Right.
months before she passed away.
Right. The in the book, the photograph from Leah Chase is just a big, beautiful plate of chicken wings. Really, it's gorgeous, fried. It's on her table. It really evoked what it's like to eat at Dookie Chase, her restaurant. It's a special photograph in your book.
And it was also, it turned out better than I had expected, because I thought they were going to give me, chitlins and black eyed peas or whatever. It was supposed to be a dinner kind of thing. And then they just came in with this, I don't know, 20 or 25 wings, and it was great. It was
and that beautiful, the white tablecloth and it's lovely. You have Jennifer Hill Booker, who's a Georgia chef in the book.
Yes.
Who does and her dish is beautiful. In fact, here, let me hold up her dish just for a last. So there's Jennifer Hill Booker.
And there's I can't remember where she's from, but that's when she was in the islands.
Mm-hmm. There, her dish. Can people see that? Kind of lovely. But she's, another chef who was, I think, cordon bleu trained and I think very French influenced in her cooking. Obviously you can see, and she's been, I think, kind of reinventing Southern food with a French lens, sort of. So, sure. Which I found delicious, of course. Let's see there. I think we're getting close to the end of our session. Let's see if there are other questions that people talked about your next.
Also, I want to do a ladies cookbook.
Ladies, you could call us women, but you call us ladies if you want. That's okay.
Women. And I want to call it the pink book.
Okay. It could be a little cliche, but you could. That's okay.
Well, no, I have a white book, because the book that I've done before was all chefs in New York, and 95% of them were white, which now will change.
Yeah, obviously.
So many others.
Yeah.
And so, I'm going to say something without hopefully getting in trouble.
Okay, now be careful. We've done really good so far, Alan.
Well, so I've done this white book, and then did this black book, and I had a meeting with 17 Asian chefs, and they were all young. And young people they're a lot more liberal than the older folks. And they said, hey, Battman, you do a white book, and you're doing a black book, and now you're doing an Asian book,
right?
But a color.
Right.
And we almost called it the yellow book.
Did they want to call it that?
They wanted to call it the yellow book.
Yeah. All right. Well, they get to decide. There you go.
And I thought I might be able to pull it off. I mean, it wasn't the Asians that were bothered by it. It was others.
Right. It's the white people.
Yeah.
Because it's really for the Asian chefs to say how they want to be described, I guess, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And they're just the coolest group of guys and ladies.
Yeah. Have you shot that yet?
Yes, it's an ebook.
Oh, okay. Actually. Oh, interesting.
And in fact, my next project, because of the way the economy is going and all that, I'm going to do a lot of ebooks. They're easy, they're quick, and they're cheaper to do, because it's thousands of dollars to produce a book. And so we're going to start doing that. In fact, it looks like I'm going to do one with Black Barn. I'm going to do one with Catch.
And so this is you're kind of a non-traditional publishing method here, right? Tell us we have just a couple more minutes. Tell us a little bit about how you go about financing and putting together the publication of a book.
If you have a lot of money, you just pay for it. Otherwise, we put the books up for pre-sale, which we've done. Tokes in Black, we did. And we sold 300 or 400 before.
Okay.
And if we can sell 600 or 700 books, it pays for the book.
Great.
If we sell it on my website.
Right.
If you have to sell on Amazon, you have to sell 4 times as many.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
So
and again, ineedthisbook.com, right?
ineedthisbook.com.
Right. So ideally, pre-sales through your website, you can get enough to pay for the book, and then you have the supporting events and things. You can raise some money too, and
right. And then I give a percentage, usually about 25% to some charity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a wonderful journey.
Right.
Is that the right
And the
word?
chefs get a book. You can't really pay the chefs to be in the book, right?
No. Everybody gets a book. They're just happy to be in the book.
Yeah. So and make
and
it.
they'll get the publicity from being in the book too. And when we get together, because when I started, the restaurant business wasn't so difficult, and so complicated. It was just cooking. So when as the business got tougher, and the chefs didn't see each other as much, when I would do this event, and I'd have 150 chefs in one room in their whites, and their egos were left outside. It was it's the best event that they've ever been to. And then so that's the first 2 hours, and then we have an hour where we break it down the room, and we have 15 to 20 restaurants serving food, and we sell tickets to the public, and we sell the signed books, and then 100% of the money from the events go to charity.
Right. Okay. That's great. And just the last question, so when you shoot the food, would you then be able to eat that dish? Someone wanted to know what that was like. Yeah.
I might not be a foodie, but it tastes good.
Yeah,
I just don't break it down, like, can you taste the dashi or something in it? That's not my thing. It just tastes good.
Oh, I'm telling you, Leah Chase's chicken looked amazing. It's got, ever since I was looking at that photograph, it's just really got it on my mind. But anyway,
the story about Leah Chase, real quick.
Yeah.
I had to get to the airport. Now, you didn't get a chance to taste the chicken. So I ran out. I got to the airport, and there was a restaurant, Dookie Chase. At the airport.
Because they opened in the new New Orleans airport.
Yeah, so I got the chicken.
Yeah, that was she was something. It was very moving for me the time that I got to spend with her. Yeah, she was really something. So
there's an interview on the website with her.
Okay.
But she wasn't as sharp as Cena, but she was just nice to be there.
Sure. Yeah, that was great. Do you have a favorite food city you like to shoot in? Like, is there a city that you think the food is just great and where you want to shoot?
The variety, nothing beats New York.
Yeah, look at you're a New Yorker. That's why. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, San Francisco is terrific. LA is spread out.
Great.
I was up in Wellington. I can't remember. North Washington. I can't remember. There's a city right below the Canadian border.
Vancouver.
No. It's also a W, I think. I can't remember. I flew up there from San Francisco, went in, took the pictures, and caught a plane and flew out and went back to LA the same day. So
the West Coast is its own beautiful world. So
beautiful.
Well, I've enjoyed this conversation so much, and we're at the end of our time. I just want to remind everybody, Tokes in Black is the book. And again, if you go to ineedthisbook.com, you can find the book, and you can find Battman running around New York City. Want to remind everybody that this is the last event in the Culinary Conversations presented by Whole Foods as part of the Decatur Book Festival. I appreciate everybody zooming in, and everything that the folks who organize the Decatur Book Festival have done to keep this alive through the COVID times. If you love independent book festivals, and if you love books, please consider donating to the Decatur Book Festival so they can continue doing what they do. I think there is a green button underneath me that you can click to donate. And Alan, I've heard of you, and our paths have crossed with various people, and what a delight to spend this time getting to know you.
Well, this is wonderful too. And thanks for taking the time to talk to me. This is great. Thank you.
Yeah, I hope we see each other when in better times, when the COVID is over.
We will. I still figure I have 15 years that I can run like a maniac. So
okay, hopefully we'll be running in the same path some point. So thank you so much. Okay, and everybody, thanks for joining in. Stay safe, read books.